Iron Man suits and dinosaurs intent on chowing down on your face. It sounds like a game cooked up in the labs of Jurassic Park itself, but has Exoprimal bit off more than it can chew? Or has Capcom delivered a blockbuster worthy of Spielberg's T-Rex? Let's get into it. It's fair to say Capcom is on one hell of an upswing. From Monster Hunter reaching new levels of critical mass, to new and old Resident Evil games not just resurrecting but revitalising the Undead series, there's quite a lot going on for the publisher these days. Not content with just monsters and zombies though, Capcom has picked a fight with dinosaurs too. And while Exoprimal certainly looked like a wild gamble initially, even with the inevitable comparisons to Dino Crisis notwithstanding, the excavated prehistoric bones here are solid enough to layer some PvPvE dino meat onto. And yes, just to get this out of the way, Exoprimal is a multiplayer only game. There's no single player campaign, so if you were hoping to plough through waves of dinosaurs on your lonesome, you're out of luck here. Exoprimal wastes absolutely no time setting its store out from the beginning. We were around 5 minutes in before we were using a captured dinosaur to attack digital enemies in the game's short but sweet tutorial. You can't argue the setup is unique. And with a timely reminder of the dangers of AI in the form of Leviathan, ChatGPT's final evolution, sending players to different battles against dinosaurs on Bikitoa Island to collect combat data. The first half an hour flew by. We're introduced to a ragtag crew, Leviathan itself, and a fleet of exosuits. Each of these Iron Man inspired outfits has its own core strengths, divided into support options like the Witch Doctor that can heal teammates and incapacitate dinosaurs, tanks like the punch-throwing Roadblock, and assault classes which focus on dealing damage, like Deadeye. And even these mechs are introduced with the same breathless energy of a toddler taking you through their favourite action figures. This one can fire a massive laser, but this one has a rifle grenade, and this one can yank a dinosaur through a portal. It's a chaotic opening, but just like that toddler playing pretend in the garden, you can switch suits at will, allowing you to dress for any occasion a dinosaur-infested island could possibly throw at you. Still, some of the suits definitely feel more useful than others. The aforementioned Witch Doctor, for example, can immobilise enemies with its default attack, but given how quickly they can just be taken down by damaging them, it feels kinda like a moot point. That said, the further you get into the game, the more the various suits' strengths and weaknesses start to come to the fore, especially when you start taking on some of the bigger stuff. And thankfully, Exoprimal just feels great on the sticks. Weapons have satisfying feedback and abilities feel powerful and flashy in equal measure. In a game where you're going to be shooting an awful lot of similar looking enemies, the core concept is at least sound. Sadly though, the enemies really are similar, especially in the early days. The first few hordes of raptors and winged dinos do feel fun to mow down, but these rank and file opponents start to feel less and less deadly by the minute. We're not saying that shooting waves of dinos is boring, it's objectively not, but a bit of earlier game variety and danger wouldn't go amiss. Where Exoprimal feels at its best though is in its battles with larger dinosaurs, like a Triceratops that's spongy and has a devastating charge attack. And it's in these instances where switching between exosuits becomes a necessity, and it's not uncommon to see teams rotate from a balanced lineup to something solely focused on damage when the bigger dinosaurs start to come out to play. We say teams because while you're battling through each wave of enemies and completing objectives like escort missions, another team is essentially doing the same thing. Destiny 2 Gambit style and working to get to the end faster than you. It's an interesting dynamic that adds some decent flavour to the gameplay short of mowing down waves of dinosaurs, and so far it's been holding up. The final run of gameplay in a typical PvPvE match will have you taking on the opposing team in a shootout to win the wargame, and chaos can reign as these slugfests quickly get out of hand with so many exosuit abilities going off. At the end of the day, it's fun, and you can't say fairer than that. It's not the Dino Crisis revival that every gamer who loved dinosaurs as a kid was hoping for. We've still got our fingers crossed we'll head back to Ibis Island eventually, and Exoprimal isn't really going to set the world on fire in terms of its gameplay, but landing on Bikitoa Island and exploring a much needed resurrection of shoot big dinosaurs with massive explosions genre has at least reminded us what we've been missing for all these years. It launched day one on Game Pass, so if you fancy taking some shots at a T-Rex with your mates, Exoprimal could be the game for you. And speaking of games where you shoot at things, you should check out these videos here.